Across Tehran, explosions and fires were reported at multiple locations. Oil storage facilities and military infrastructure were hit, sending massive clouds of smoke into the sky. Some residents described seeing dark smoke and what they called black rain, caused by chemicals and debris falling back to the ground. Thousands of civilians began leaving parts of the capital, while those who remained tried to protect themselves by reinforcing windows and staying indoors.
Along the rails on both sides of the ship, crew members and sailors stand and watch the shore pull away. Some look back at the port, at the buildings, at the people standing on the docks watching the carrier leave. Nobody waves, they just stand and look. The tugboats push and pull the massive hull through the channel, and once the carrier clears the harbor entrance, they peel off one by one, and the ship moves into open water under its own power. As soon as the ship is clear of port, the deck crews get to work. Sailors grab steel brushes and start scrubbing the anchor chains and mooring lines, cleaning off mud, salt, and debris picked up in the harbor. The lines are coiled and stowed. The anchor housings are secured for sea. Below the flight deck, in the hangar bay, mechanics are already preparing helicopters for combat sorties. Weapons teams attach ordnance to the pylons, rockets, missiles, gun pods. Maintenance crews inspect rotor assemblies, hydraulic lines, and tail sections. Each helicopter gets a full check before it is cleared for the flight deck. On the other side of the hangar, the same process is happening with the fighter jets. F/A-18 Super Hornets are being prepped, weapons loaded, panels closed, engine covers removed, fuel levels checked. One by one, the fighters are towed to the aircraft elevators and brought up to the flight deck. Deck crew in colored jerseys guide each aircraft into position on the catapults. Wings are unfolded and locked. Launch bars are attached. Jet blast deflectors rise behind the engines.
Terrain and a population of more than 80 million people. Its military doctrine emphasizes defense and regional deterrence rather than traditional large-scale invasions. Because of these factors, many experts believe that any direct military conflict would likely become prolonged and unpredictable. That is why most international observers hope such a scenario never occurs. Even during periods of intense rivalry, diplomatic channels often remain open behind the scenes. Quiet negotiations, back-channel communications, and international mediation have historically helped prevent crises from spiraling out of control. In the end, the stability of the Middle East depends heavily on avoiding miscalculations. Leadership changes, military alerts, and political tensions can all create moments of uncertainty.
The campaign did not stop after the first wave. Over the following days, additional strikes targeted Iranian naval vessels, missile systems, and drone factories. U.S. officials said the goal of these attacks was to weaken Iran's military capabilities and reduce the threat from its weapons programs. Meanwhile, Iran's government moved quickly to prevent a power vacuum. Within days of the assassination, Iranian authorities announced that Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, would become the new supreme leader.
The missiles streak across the sky one after another, heading toward Iranian military targets hundreds of miles away. On the receiving end, Iranian military installations start taking hits. Explosions light up the landscape.
Oh my God, here they come. That's right in the center. Another one, and another one. Look at that. A whole wave of them. The whole skyline's lit up.
As the cruise missiles find their targets one by one. Back on the carrier, the catapults keep working. More fighters taxi into launch position, hook up, and launch off the bow. The flight deck is a constant rotation. One aircraft launches, the next one rolls into place. Deck crew work without pause, directing jets, arming catapults, clearing debris from the deck.
Some political and religious figures questioned the legitimacy of the process, while others feared the country could become even more dominated by military forces. At the same time, the conflict continued to spread beyond Iran's borders. Iran responded to the attacks by launching missiles and drones toward targets linked to the United States and Israel across the region. These retaliatory strikes were aimed at military bases and strategic infrastructure in several countries. The escalation raised fears of a much larger regional war. Across the Middle East, governments increased security and placed their armed forces on high alert. Energy markets also reacted to the crisis because Iran sits near the Strait of Hormuz, a key shipping route through which a large portion of the world's oil passes. Any disruption there could affect global fuel supplies and prices. Inside Iran, daily life has become extremely difficult for many civilians. Human rights organizations report that the ongoing bombing campaign has caused significant casualties and widespread damage to infrastructure. Hospitals, transportation systems, and energy facilities have all been affected in different parts of the country. Some analysts say the situation could reshape Iran's political future. With the Revolutionary Guards gaining greater influence and a new leader taking power during wartime, Iran may be entering a new phase in its history, one where military authority becomes even stronger. But the biggest concern remains what happens next. If the conflict continues to escalate between Iran, the United States, and Israel, it could trigger a wider war involving multiple countries across the Middle East. For now, the world is watching closely. The coming weeks may determine whether the crisis stabilizes through diplomacy, or whether the region moves toward a much larger and more dangerous conflict.
The escort ships continue firing. Missile after missile leaves the vertical launch cells, each one aimed at a different target. Radar sites, command posts, air defense batteries, military bases. The barrage does not stop. Meanwhile, on land, additional fighters are taking off from airfields across the region. They climb out from runways at Allied bases, form up in pairs and flights, and head toward the combat zone to join the operation. The air campaign is building. Carrier-based jets, land-based fighters, cruise missiles from the escort ships. Everything is converging on the same targets at the same time. The strike is underway.